So it's just going to take some attendees a moment to join in. So give them just a second here. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin. I'm the training coordinator here with the Association of State Floodplain Managers. And I want to thank you for joining us for our presentation about strengthening coastal communities resilience challenge program. So today I'm going to be serving as sort of the moderator and sort of tech support backup. So I just have a quick couple of administrative announcements to make before we get into the presentation portion itself. Number one, I just want to let people know we are going to record this in case questions come up later on and you'd like to reference it. We will be recording it and we can make that available to you after the fact. So as you're taking notes, just please keep that in mind. I pretty much always get a question about CECs for CFM. So I just want to let people know that we're not giving credit out for this presentation. And last note, just a word on sort of participation. We have a question and answer section that you can submit any questions or comments you have in writing to us throughout the duration of the presentation. And we'll kind of take those at the end. If you would like to ask any questions or make any comments verbally, just raise your hand within the Zoom webinar platform and we'll hold all those until the end, but we'll hopefully have a back and forth at the end there where I can unmute your lines. But with that, I don't want to take up too much time with these admin announcements here. And I'd like to introduce Jenna Moran for the presentation at hand. Jenna's our Flood Science Center portfolio manager here at ASFPM. So she's got a lot of plates spinning right now, but we're gonna talk to you about an exciting program. So Jenna, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Hello, everybody. As Kevin said, I am the co-director of the ASFPM Flood Science Center and the manager of this program. We wanted to start today. Our agenda is just a quick introduction to ASFPM and the project team for those of you who aren't familiar with ASFPM, the Association of State Floodplain Managers. Then we'll go into an overview of the technical assistance program and how to prepare and submit an application. We like to start our presentations with a quick overview of what is floodplain management. Floodplain management is a community-based effort to prevent or reduce the risk of flooding, resulting in a more resilient community. There are multiple groups with stakes in protecting their communities from flooding and who carry out floodplain management functions. ASFPM did a survey a few years ago on sort of who are local floodplain managers, and they sit in all different departments and have all different titles, from emergency managers to planners, engineers, building code officials, etc. But regardless of your title or where you sit within the government, a local floodplain manager is typically responsible for implementing their community's local floodplain ordinance and ensuring their community's compliance with minimum NFIP standards, as well as enforcing their own local higher standards. So what is ASFPM's mission? Our mission is to reduce the losses, costs, and human suffering caused by flooding, to protect the natural and beneficial functions of floodplains, and to promote education policies and activities that meet this mission. How do we achieve that? We achieve it by advocating around national and state policy, by certifying floodplain managers via the National Certified Floodplain Managers Certification Program, as well as providing training, conferences, and events to support that certification program. And lastly, we develop tools, publications, and other resources through the Flood Science Center, as well as the ASFPM policy committees. We have 13 policy committees that address a variety of different topics related to floodplain management. In addition to developing projects, programs, and projects, ASFPM, as well as the Flood Science Center, build collaborative relationships at the federal, academic, foundation, industry, and other non-governmental organizations as partners, with the idea to study the technical, social, economic, all those various aspects of flood science. And sort of bringing it all full circle, those relationships are what lead to our projects and programs like this one. The Strengthening Coastal County Communities' Resilience in the Great Lakes project is led by ASFPM in partnership with the American Planning Association, Coastal States Organization, and the Great Lakes Sea Grant Network via Wisconsin Sea Grant. Each of these partners brings a unique coastal viewpoint to the team and tackles coastal management around flood risk from a different angle. So the diversity of partners engaged in this program helps to ensure we bring an array of support to the communities with which we will work. And we began talking about this specific program in the Great Lakes in 2020, but oh, and I forgot to mention, this project is funded by NIFWIF through a National Coastal Resilience Fund grant. So we really appreciate NIFWIF for that. This project was built out of a program, a pilot program that was in the Gulf of Mexico region. It was led by the National Association of Counties in partnership with ASFPM and the Coastal States Organization. And with this sort of relaunch in the Great Lakes, we have improved upon the technical assistance process as well as the application based on feedback from those pilot communities in the Gulf of Mexico. With this sort of reboot in the Great Lakes region, the program is working to help communities assess their community flood vulnerability, to identify areas where natural resource restoration efforts will have the greatest impact for social, economic, and/or environmental resilience. And to do that, we're working to develop plans that identify and describe specific efforts to increase resilience and reduce exposure to flooding in those areas. Along the way, we want to build a community of practice among or sort of loop the communities if they're not already into the existing community of practices in the region at the local sort of state, academic, NGO partner levels. We hope our communities learn valuable coastal resilience skills, and we want to help connect them with available funding sources. Now, how are we planning to do this? The technical assistance program, we hope to work with or plan to work with 4 communities in the region over the course of a year. The technical assistance program will include 2 regional training workshops in the winter of 2023 and winter of 2024. There will be 1 year of technical assistance to support the development of local vulnerability assessments and scenario plans. And there will be 1 site visit to each community throughout the summer and fall of 2023 during that year of technical assistance. The hope is that by engaging teams in this multitude of ways, it will encourage relationship building between the teams in that 4 community cohort, but also within the region to formalize relationships between local leaders, coastal programs, and the Sea Grant Network. To delve a little bit further into each of those aspects of the technical assistance program, first, looking at the regional training workshops. While we are going to work with each community individually, the program, as I mentioned, is heavily focused on creating a cohort and bringing communities together across the regions. So these workshops will go far in creating those relationships and starting critical conversations. They will be guided by expert facilitators and practitioners and will focus around discussions of local and regional coastal issues related to flooding, planning, and coastal management. Through strategy sessions, the community-based teams will collaborate with project partners, key regional stakeholders, and the other participating communities as they begin and end their vulnerability assessment and scenario planning work. And there will be at least one session at the workshops on grant writing and grant opportunities. There, I want to stress, is no registration or application fee, and ASFPM will be able to offset travel costs to each workshop. However, teams should expect to cover their own meals. We are still confirming the exact location for the opening workshop, but it will either be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the end of February 2023, and we hope to have that solidified within the next couple of weeks. So by the time we announce the teams and start that process, we will have a location and be able to move forward there. Looking at the year-long technical assistance process, we will that will happen between winter 2023 and winter 2024, and but it will start before that first workshop in winter 2023. So in January, we'll be looking to have 2 calls with each of the 4 communities. The first call will go over a sort of community self-assessment process. And we will walk the communities through a form that we hope that they'll be able to fill out, and we'll also be discussing what plans they have in place at the community level to get a sense among the project team where each community stands and sort of how plans are integrated or not integrated. In between those 2 calls, the community will be working to complete their self-assessment form, and the project team will be analyzing their plans to see what sort of coastal resilience related policies and policy-led language or data are part of the existing plans. And call 2 will go over that analysis the project team has done, as well as the completed self-assessment form and any sort of gaps in the self-assessment form where the communities weren't able to or are not able to answer the questions. We'll go over those and provide assistance there. Then between the workshops, that more in-depth technical assistance will include sort of exposure analysis, risk sensitivity analysis, scenario, sort of creating scenarios, identifying focus areas, and looking at community outreach. So really delving into that vulnerability assessment and scenario planning based on sort of that grounding we've set in those pre-phone calls and at that first workshop. I want to highlight that the technical assistance will primarily be virtual, except for the one site visit. The site visit, each team will have at least one, or community will have at least one visit with the project team from ASFPM or its partners. It will likely be scheduled towards the end of the technical assistance process, so closer to fall of 2023, but maybe in summer, depending on sort of how fast they move through that vulnerability assessment and scenario planning. And at the local workshop, the community team will and the project team will review the results of the assessment and then begin to develop a local action plan based on the results. The project partners will be on the ground to facilitate discussion as the action plan is developed and discuss which nature-based resilience strategies, policies, and projects might best protect their community and reduce vulnerability to flooding. The teams, each community will leave the program with one vulnerability assessment, a set of planning scenarios, at least one identified natural or nature-based project for implementation, at least 2 identified potential funding sources to support the implementation, as well as a larger action plan. We wanted to also highlight what this program is not. It's not a pass-through grant opportunity. As I mentioned, ASFPM has funding to support the teams and to support travel throughout the technical assistance process, but there is not any direct money that will be passed on to the participating communities. There will not be engineering or design assistance. The assistance will be limited to that support with sort of in planning, primarily around GIS and overall planning sort of thoughts. And the focus will be on coastal flooding. So while coastal shoreline erosion, stabilization, or habitat enhancement are important, they'll be more addressed as co-benefits to that flooding focus. And again, this program is affiliated with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation funding. It is not affiliated with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Great Lakes Coastal Resiliency Study. Next, I want to go sort of into the application, as well as where to apply and how applications will be evaluated, and then how and when communities will be notified if they've been selected. First, for your eligibility, community eligibility. Communities have to, I keep saying the word teams, which might be confusing. To me, when I'm talking communities and teams with regards to this program are sort of interchangeable, because communities must form teams to apply. Each team should include at least one local elected official or tribal leader, one local tribal or regional planner, a local or tribal professional staff member with coastal and/or floodplain management duties, and a local, tribal, or regional natural resource manager or wildlife habitat expert. The thought behind this team-based approach is by requiring the diversity of stakeholders to participate, the project partners aim to build that infrastructure and cross-sector collaborative relationships and assets necessary to ensure that the work we do and the action plans that are created during the course of the technical assistance will be sort of prioritized and invested in the community across the different sectors within the community. And that requirement of a local elected official to participate sort of confirms that government involvement from the outset and ensures that you can draw upon the official's convening power as you move into that implementation phase. Teams must have no less than the 4 required members on the slide, and as I just mentioned, but they can also include additional team members, and those might include emergency managers, transportation officials, economic development officials, stormwater managers, can be anybody. We welcome a team being larger. We just sort of require that minimum 4, and there will be a limit to how many, if you have a larger team, how many can come to the workshop because of, space limitations, etc. But that doesn't mean that back home you can't have a larger team that's part of the effort. In terms of the community, the teams must be or include at least one Great Lakes coastal shoreline county with population of less than 250,000, or be a community or a tribe with population of less than 250,000 within a coastal shoreline county. So we have a list on the website, which is no.floods.org/GL challenge. That's on a slide later, and it's throughout the sort of promotional materials. And so the list there will tell you sort of who those coastal shoreline counties are with less than 250 or over. Happy to answer specific questions as needed around that. But I do say or include because teams can be multi-jurisdictional. So if a larger county wanted to participate with a community of less than 250,000 within its boundaries, that's more than acceptable within the bounds of sort of this eligibility requirement. To prepare your application, we are using a sort of online application form. So we do like to highlight that it is sometimes easier if you download the PDF version, which is available on the website, and copy paste the questions into a Word processing file, answer them offline, and then copy paste into the form. That might be helpful because each question is required, and it's sometimes just easier to do that copy paste. But we did learn from the Gulf pilot, and we tried to shorten and tighten up the application. The first section is the applicant information. It's just basic information on your state, county name for that eligibility requirement, your community name, and population size. This section sort of directly correlates to the evaluation criteria around community location and gets to the eligibility question. But it also gives us a sense of where you are in the region, and we want the cohort to sort of be balanced across the region. So ideally, we wouldn't have 4 communities in Michigan. We would have, a good cross section of the region represented. The next section of the application of the statement of intent is the statement of intent, but I'm going to sort of hold on delving into this deeper until a little later in the slides. With regards to the team member section, we'll want you to list each of the team members that we just went over. And there are spots on the application to list up to 6 team members if you'd like. But again, you just want to make sure you have the required 4 as part of those 6, and you can have more that aren't on the application or aren't able to attend the workshop. But this section on team members gets to eligibility. It also, with regards to the evaluation criteria, addresses your team makeup and the strength of the partnership. Each team member, we request a short bio. And with that bio, we'd like it to focus more on the individual's role in the partnership. So what does their experience bring to the group and its goals, not just a summary of their resume. Letters of commitment. In this section, with their letter of commitment, the team members must agree to sort of participate in all the activities and the follow-up activities, just to make sure everyone is committed to the process. And as stated previously, one of our primary goals is to build a cohort, and having everyone engaged in sort of this commitment from the start is really important to that goal. And lastly, we provide the opportunity to submit additional materials. And these could be your local plans that you already have in place that are adopted, and any images that or videos that you think would further round out and tell your community story, or any gaps that you feel you weren't able to address in the statement of intent questions that you really think would be useful for us to know as we evaluate your application. Sort of logistically on that, there is a file size limit of 10 megabytes. And for videos, we'll want a URL submission. And we do want to limit videos or the review of videos to 10 minutes. So if your video is a longer video, 15 minutes, if you could highlight sort of a 2-minute section that the reviewers should focus on, that will really help. But to delve into the statement of intent, the first question we pose is, why is your team interested in participating in the program? And this question directly correlates to the evaluation criteria around community need. Do you have a lot, or are you worried about coastal flooding in your community? Is your community under-resourced and could benefit from planning technical assistance? Those kinds of questions, that kind of information is what we're looking for here. Second, does your community have any existing coastal resilience plans, policies, priorities, or projects already in place? This question directly correlates to the evaluation criteria around the prioritization of resilience in current plans, and sort of helps orient the project team to where the communities stand. As mentioned with this cohort, we sort of want everybody to be able to bring something to the other teams to meld and those strengths and weaknesses. The third question is your community in the middle of any planning efforts, or will it be in the next 12 months? And this is just for the project team knowledge. We want to make sure that we align efforts when possible and just have that understanding of where everyone is in their planning cycles. Question 4, we ask you to communities to describe their existing institutional capacity to implement projects post-technical assistance. So one of the goals of the project is to make sure teams are prepared to move into the implementation phase after technical assistance ends. And this question is just to help us gauge where each community is to be able to provide the right level of support throughout the technical assistance process. And with regards to the evaluation criteria, it directly sort of applies to that community and team capacity criteria. Lastly, we want to know what your team would like to gain or learn from fellow workshop participants, and what are 3 things your team could share, your community could share with other participants. We want that cohort to be strong, and we want to match those strengths and weaknesses. And this will just give us a better understanding of sort of each community and team, and hopefully we can find communities that complement each other. As I mentioned, you can apply for the challenge and learn more at know.floods.org/GL challenge. The application is an Esri ArcGIS Survey 123 form. There is no fee to apply. And again, we recommend you sort of answer the questions offline and then copy paste them into the form. And the form will close on November 9th at midnight. So you've still got a couple weeks to apply. As for evaluation, I've mentioned evaluation criteria throughout this application section, and the criteria are around the team makeup, the strength of the partnership, the team capacity, community need, prioritization of resilience in existing plans, and the location of the communities. The application review will be done by the core project team, members of ASFPM, CSO, the American Planning Association, and Great Lakes Sea Grant and the Wisconsin Sea Grant Network, as well as select additional reviewers from our broader networks using the criteria listed on the slide. And the panel will assign sort of a score to each application and recommend based on that scoring metric. But if people score alike, we're going to be looking again to that cohort. How can we pair those strengths and weaknesses and build a group that complements one another? We will notify teams if they were selected or not the week of December 5th via phone call or an email if we can't connect over the phone. And then the teams will be publicly announced via a press release the week of December 12th. So that was, that's pretty much everything. I think I sped through that. When I timed myself earlier, it was a little bit longer. So I hope I didn't talk too fast. Happy to answer any questions or go back if I went too quickly over anything that we want to, reverse and check in on. Also, I want to highlight that all the beautiful photos from around the Great Lakes region highlighted in this presentation were by my colleague, Eleanor Rappley. So she's a great photographer.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jenna. This is Kevin again. I'm going to leave my webcam off because I'm having a little bit of connectivity issues. But we did actually get a few questions, Jenna, so I'll just sort of moderate through those. And in the meantime, just a reminder to people, if you have questions that you want to ask out loud, just raise your hand and I'll try to take as many questions as we can and unmute you in the order, hopefully, that you raise those hands. And also we'll continue to take questions in the Q&A section as well. So if you have something come up and you want to ask, just type it in there. But Jenna, the first question that came in from Kevin was kind of a general question. It came in a little bit early, so you probably answered this at least to some extent, but the question is, how will this be similar or different than the hazard mitigation plan?
Yep. Thanks, Kevin. So I'm not one of the planning experts on the team, so hopefully my answer is sufficient, but will probably not be as good as they could give. What we're providing is different than sort of a hazard mitigation plan. We are specifically going to be focusing on more that vulnerability assessment and sort of scenario planning. There is I don't remember the official title, but it's a sort of process that was set out by Dick Norton out of the University of Michigan, I believe. And they created sort of a baseline process that we will be sort of building off of as from there. And so the way that it works out, very sort of high level, is you do the data analysis and then look at sort of 9 different scenario plans, your sort of low risk to high risk in different environmental scenarios. I hope that answers the question, and I'm happy to provide a more detailed answer via email later as well.
Great, thanks, Jenna. The next question, actually pair of questions, Dana had a couple of questions. One is, are there any requirements to adopt anything into the community's master plan? And then follow up to that, just kind of wondering why larger communities might kind of be excluded.
Yep, great questions. No, there are no requirements to adopt anything into the community's master plan. One of the things that we're going to be doing in terms of the existing plans are sort of looking at what's there and looking at how they're integrated or not integrated, and we can sort of make recommendations and go over what might be good to include, but there's no requirement to make any changes to your plans. This is all just support to help with your decision making. Then with regards to larger communities, we specifically focused on smaller communities because we wanted to, larger communities usually have more capacity, and we specifically wanted this program to build capacity and add capacity to communities that that wouldn't normally have it. And so that's how we came to the 250,000 sort of limit.
Okay, great. Thanks for taking both of those in order. Our last question that we have in the Q&A section right now comes from Kevin. Before I get to it, again, just quickly, because this will be the last question unless anything else comes up. So if you have something, please either raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or send it in the Q&A. But Kevin is asking, how many communities will be selected? Will there be a limit of awards per Great Lake or per state?
Great question. There will be 4 communities selected. So, but we're not specifically limiting the awards per state or per Great Lake. It will be based on sort of that review process and that criteria. The only time we might, pay attention to your locale is related to if sort of everyone's alike, we do want that split. So to provide variety, but if more people rise to the top in the same area, it could be such that that they're from the same state, but because we haven't set a specific limit, but we do have a preference for having that variety.
Okay, very good. Well, no other questions came in. So Jenna, I'll give you the final word and then I'll just close everything out to wrap up if there's anything you'd like to mention.
Great, thanks. No, we're just really excited to be able to kick this off, to launch it and get started working with the communities in the region. Happy to answer any questions. My email address is here, and we yeah, we're just really excited.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, thanks so much, everybody, for taking time out of your afternoon to join us. And Jenna, thanks for walking us through all that. And I apologize if some of the questions I asked might have been a little redundant. I was trying to follow along and moderate. So anyway, thank you all so much, and we look forward to hearing from you on this front. Take care, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.